The woods can be both enchanting and terrifying. Today, we explore the darker side of nature with tales that will chill you to the bone. Imagine yourself on a hiking trail as the sun dips below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows. The air grows colder, and the sounds of the forest shift from cheerful birdsong to the rustling of unseen creatures. These stories are about those moments when the familiar becomes unsettling, when the line between the natural and supernatural blurs.
Jake, an enthusiastic hiker, loved nothing more than venturing deep into the wilderness. He felt most alive when surrounded by the towering trees and the quiet solitude of nature. However, on this particular hike, a sense of unease settled upon him. It started subtly, a feeling of being watched, a prickling at the back of his neck. He dismissed it at first, attributing it to his imagination running wild. But as the day wore on, the feeling intensified. He began to hear faint footsteps behind him, crunching on the dry leaves. Each time he stopped to look over his shoulder, there was nothing there. Yet the footsteps continued, always just out of sight. Then, as dusk approached, he saw it, a fleeting glimpse of a shadowy figure darting behind a thick oak tree. Fear gripped him, urging him to pick up his pace. The footsteps grew louder, closer. He could hear his heart pounding in his chest, his breath catching in his throat. He pushed himself harder, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Finally, as darkness enveloped the forest, he stumbled out onto a familiar fire road, the footsteps fading into the distance. He never returned to that trail, forever haunted by the unseen tracker that had stalked him through the woods.
Emma and her friends were thrilled to be spending a weekend camping in the remote wilderness. They found a secluded spot near a crystal-clear stream, set up their tents, and built a crackling campfire. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the forest floor, they shared stories and laughter, enjoying the peacefulness of their surroundings. However, their idyllic evening took a sinister turn when they decided to explore a nearby trail. As they ventured deeper into the woods, they stumbled upon another campsite. But this one was different. It was in complete disarray. Tents ripped apart, belongings scattered everywhere, and an unsettling silence hanging in the air. As they cautiously approached the abandoned campsite, they noticed something even more disturbing: bloodstains on a torn piece of fabric. Fear gripped them, their laughter replaced with nervous whispers. They quickly retreated to their own campsite, their minds racing with unsettling possibilities. They tried to rationalize what they had seen, but the bloodstains and the chaotic state of the campsite sent shivers down their spines. They huddled together around the campfire, their eyes darting into the darkness beyond the flickering flames. Sleep was impossible that night. The disturbing discovery had shattered their sense of security. The next morning, they packed up their gear and fled the campsite, vowing never to return to that part of the woods. The image of the disturbed campsite, the bloodstains, and the eerie silence remained etched in their minds, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of nature's beauty.
Tom and Kevin, two adventurous teenagers, decided to explore a remote cave they had heard rumors about. The cave was said to be shrouded in mystery, and local legends spoke of strange occurrences within its depths. Armed with flashlights and a sense of excitement, they entered the cave's dark mouth. The air inside was damp and heavy, and the only sound was the dripping of water from the cave's ceiling. As they ventured deeper into the cave, the darkness became more oppressive. The beam of their flashlights struggled to penetrate the thick shadows that clung to the cave walls. The path became narrower and more treacherous, forcing them to scramble over rocks and squeeze through tight passages. Then, they stumbled upon something truly bizarre, a series of strange symbols etched into the cave wall. The symbols were unlike anything they had ever seen before, angular and cryptic, as if from an ancient and unknown language. As they stood there examining the symbols, they began to hear faint whispers echoing through the cave. The whispers seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves, swirling around them like an unseen presence. Fear tightened its grip on them, their hearts pounding in their chests. They shone their flashlights into the darkness, desperate to find the source of the whispers, but there was nothing there. The whispers intensified, growing louder and more insistent, seeming to mock their fear. Tom and Kevin, their nerves shattered, turned and ran, scrambling back through the narrow passages and out into the sunlight. They never spoke of the cave again, but the memory of the strange symbols and the haunting whispers lingered in their minds, fueling nightmares that would plague them for years to come.
Sam and Lisa, a young couple seeking a romantic getaway, rented a secluded cabin deep in the woods.
The cabin was charming and rustic, with a stone fireplace and a porch overlooking a serene lake. As they settled in for the night, a storm rolled in, bringing with it torrential rain and howling winds. The power went out, plunging the cabin into darkness. As they huddled together by the fireplace, listening to the storm rage outside, they began to hear strange noises, faint whispers and the creaking of floorboards.
At first, we dismissed the noises as the sounds of the old cabin settling in the storm.
But as the night wore on, the noises grew louder and more unsettling. One particularly loud creak from the hallway made them both jump. They strained their ears, listening intently. The whispers seemed to be coming from just outside their bedroom door, soft and indistinct, yet undeniably present.
Then we saw it, a pale, shadowy figure flitting past our bedroom door.
Terror seized them, their breath catching in their throats. They clung to each other, their eyes wide with fear. The figure vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving them in darkness and uncertainty. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone in the cabin.
Driven by fear and a sense of dread, we decided to call the police.
As they waited for the police to arrive, they sat huddled together on the couch, every creak and groan of the cabin sending shivers down their spines. The police arrived and searched the cabin, but found no signs of forced entry or any other disturbances. Despite the lack of evidence, Sam and Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. They packed their bags and left the cabin, vowing never to return. The memory of the whispers, the shadowy figure, and the unsettling feeling of being watched haunted them, a chilling reminder that even the most idyllic settings can harbor secrets. Camp Bernadette, a summer camp nestled among towering pines, was a place of joy and laughter for generations of children. But beneath the surface of carefree summer days lay a dark secret, a story whispered among the campers, the tale of Sarah, a young girl who vanished without a trace. It was a warm summer evening, and the campers were playing a spirited game of hide-and-seek in the woods surrounding the camp. I had found the perfect hiding spot, a hollowed-out log hidden deep within the woods. As the minutes turned into an hour, the other campers grew tired of searching and returned to the campfire, assuming Sarah had grown bored and wandered back on her own. But Sarah never returned. Frantic searches were conducted throughout the night, but no sign of Sarah was found. The woods seemed to have swallowed her whole. Days turned into weeks, and the mystery of Sarah's disappearance deepened. The camp counselors and local authorities were baffled, unable to find any clues to her whereabouts. Some whispered that I had simply wandered off and gotten lost, while others clung to the belief that something more sinister had occurred. As the years passed, the story of Sarah's disappearance faded into legend, a chilling tale whispered around campfires and during late-night ghost stories. But some say that Sarah never truly left Camp Bernadette. There have been fleeting sightings of a young girl matching Sarah's description in the woods surrounding the camp, always disappearing as quickly as she appears. Some campers claim to have heard her laughter echoing through the trees, a haunting reminder of the mystery that continues to perplex and terrify. Mark, an experienced outdoorsman, was on a solo camping trip deep in the Canadian wilderness. He had set up his tent near a secluded lake, surrounded by towering pines and the pristine beauty of nature. As night fell, a sense of unease settled upon him. The sounds of the forest seemed to change, taking on a more menacing tone. The rustling of leaves sounded like footsteps, the hooting of owls like mournful cries. As he lay in his tent, trying to ignore the unsettling feeling, he became aware of a presence outside. It wasn't a sound he could pinpoint, but a feeling, a heaviness in the air. He strained his ears, listening for any sign of movement, but the forest remained eerily silent. Then he heard it, a low growl, deep and guttural, emanating from just beyond his tent. Fear shot through him, his heart pounding in his chest. He grabbed his flashlight and shone it through the thin fabric of his tent, but the beam revealed nothing but the dense undergrowth. The growl came again, closer this time, sending shivers down his spine. He lay frozen in his sleeping bag, his mind racing with possibilities. Was it a bear, a wolf, or something else entirely? He spent the rest of the night in a state of heightened alert, every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig sending his pulse racing. When dawn finally broke, he cautiously emerged from his tent. As he surveyed the area around his campsite, he noticed something unsettling. Deep claw marks raked across the trunk of a nearby tree. The claw marks were unlike anything he had ever seen before, too large for a bear, too deep for a wolf. The mysterious presence that had haunted him throughout the night had left its mark, a chilling reminder that the wilderness held secrets beyond human comprehension. Rachel, an avid hiker, embarked on a solo trek through the Appalachian Mountains, eager to escape the hustle and bustle of city life and reconnect with nature. She followed a well-marked trail, her backpack filled with supplies, her camera ready to capture the breathtaking scenery. As she hiked deeper into the mountains, a sense of unease crept over her. It started subtly, a feeling of being watched, a prickling at the back of her neck. She dismissed it at first, attributing it to her imagination running wild in the solitude of the wilderness. But as the day wore on, the feeling intensified. She began to hear faint footsteps behind her, crunching on the dry leaves. Every time she stopped to look over her shoulder, there was nothing there. She tried to rationalize her fear, telling herself it was just the wind or a small animal moving through the undergrowth. But the feeling of being followed persisted, growing stronger with each passing hour. As dusk approached, she decided to set up camp for the night. She found a secluded spot near a stream, pitched her tent, and built a small fire. As darkness enveloped the mountains, the feeling of unease intensified. The sounds of the forest seemed to change, taking on a more menacing tone. The rustling of leaves sounded like footsteps, the hooting of owls like mournful cries. She retreated into her tent, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind racing with possibilities. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, watching her, waiting for the right moment to strike. Days later, when Rachel failed to return from her hike, a search party was organized. They scoured the mountains, following her planned route, but found no trace of her. Her backpack was eventually discovered abandoned near a stream, its contents scattered, her camera missing. The search party also found her journal, its pages filled with chilling entries detailing her growing sense of being watched, the strange noises she heard, and the overwhelming fear that had consumed her in the days leading up to her disappearance. John and Mike, two friends with a passion for the paranormal, decided to explore an abandoned house rumored to be haunted. The house stood on a hill overlooking a small town, its windows boarded up, its paint peeling, its air thick with an eerie silence. As they approached the house, a cold wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of decay and the weight of forgotten memories. They cautiously made their way up the creaking porch steps, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. The front door creaked open with a groan, revealing a dusty foyer frozen in time. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, furniture lay draped in white sheets, and portraits of stern-faced ancestors stared down from the walls. As they ventured deeper into the house, the air grew colder and heavier. They explored each room, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, illuminating forgotten relics and remnants of a life long gone. As they reached the top of the grand staircase, they noticed a faint light emanating from a room at the end of the hallway. Curiosity piqued. They slowly approached the room, their footsteps echoing through the silent house. As they peered through the cracked open door, they saw an old man sitting in a rocking chair, his eyes closed, his face etched with wrinkles, his body as still as a statue. They watched him for a moment, unsure whether he was real or a figment of their imaginations. John coughed softly and the old man's eyes snapped open. He turned his head towards them, his gaze piercing and intense, sending shivers down their spines. Before they could speak, he stood up from the rocking chair and vanished into thin air, leaving them alone in the eerie silence of the haunted house. They searched the room and the surrounding hallway, but there was no sign of the old man. He had disappeared as quickly and mysteriously as he had appeared, leaving them to wonder if they had truly seen a ghost, or if their minds had played tricks on them in the unsettling atmosphere of the abandoned house. Greg and his friends, a group of college students eager for adventure, decided to spend a weekend camping in a remote part of the Redwood National Park. They found a secluded clearing near a towering redwood, set up their tents, and built a crackling campfire. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows among the giant trees, they shared stories and laughter, enjoying the peacefulness of their surroundings. However, as darkness enveloped the forest, a sense of unease settled upon them. The sounds of the forest seemed to change, taking on a more menacing tone. The rustling of leaves sounded like footsteps, the hooting of owls like mournful cries. As they sat around the campfire, their conversation dwindled to nervous whispers. They began to hear strange noises, low growls, guttural snarls, and the snapping of twigs, coming from the darkness beyond the flickering flames. Fear tightened its grip on them, their eyes darting into the shadows, their senses on high alert. Then, they saw it, a pair of glowing eyes peering at them from the undergrowth. The eyes were unlike anything they had ever seen before, large, luminous, and filled with an unsettling intelligence. The creature remained hidden in the darkness, its eyes fixed on them, its presence sending shivers down their spines. They threw more wood on the fire, hoping to scare away whatever was watching them, but the eyes remained fixed on them, unblinking, unwavering. They spent the rest of the night huddled together around the fire, their hearts pounding in their chests, their minds racing with possibilities. The unknown creature continued to watch them from the darkness, its presence a constant threat, its intentions a mystery. As dawn finally approached, the glowing eyes vanished, leaving them to wonder what they had encountered in the depths of the redwood forest. The memory of the unsettling noises, the glowing eyes, and the feeling of being watched haunted them, a chilling reminder that the wilderness held secrets beyond human comprehension. Anna and her friends, a group of curious teenagers, decided to explore a secluded part of the woods rumored to be a place of ancient rituals. They had heard stories from locals about strange occurrences in the area, unexplained lights, eerie sounds, and a feeling of being watched. Armed with flashlights and a sense of adventure, they ventured into the woods, following a barely discernible path. As they walked deeper into the woods, the air grew colder and heavier, and an eerie silence settled upon them. The sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy of trees, casting long shadows that danced and shifted around them. They eventually stumbled upon a clearing unlike anything they had ever seen before. The trees surrounding the clearing were twisted and gnarled, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. In the center of the clearing stood a large, flat rock, its surface covered in strange symbols and markings. The symbols were unlike anything they had ever encountered before, angular and cryptic, as if from an ancient and unknown language. As they stood there, examining the symbols, they began to experience a series of unsettling phenomena. The air grew thick and heavy, making it difficult to breathe. A low humming sound vibrated through the ground, causing their teeth to chatter. Then the temperature plummeted, sending shivers down their spines. They felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if they were being watched by unseen eyes. They tried to leave the clearing, but their legs felt heavy, their movements sluggish. They stumbled and fell, their flashlights rolling away into the darkness. Panic surged through them, their hearts pounding in their chests, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. They crawled on their hands and knees, desperate to escape the clearing, but an unseen force seemed to hold them captive. They eventually managed to break free from the clearing's grip, stumbling out into the familiar woods, their bodies trembling, their minds reeling from the unsettling experience. These stories reveal the thin line between the natural and the supernatural. Remember these tales the next time you venture into the woods, and tread carefully. The woods hold secrets, mysteries that may never be fully understood. The next time you hear a twig snap, or the wind whispers through the trees, remember these tales. Remember the unseen tracker, the disturbed campsite, the whispers in the cave. The wilderness is a place of both beauty and danger, where the familiar can quickly turn into the unsettling.